Hey, what's up, agency owners? Jason Mike here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass. And I have a really cool agency owner who this is her first podcast. So we need to welcome her and she'll do great. But Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us who you are, what you do.
Sam Martin, co-owner and partner at Prime Marketing Agency. We're an experiential agency based out of Canada. And yeah, we are fully female-led and we're established in 2020 and working on growing within the Canadian and US businesses.
Awesome. And how did you get started? How did you get into this crazy world?
Very accidentally, the way I became a partner, but how I started out in the industry was I was working gigs during school weekends, evenings. I was part of a dance group. So we had an agency place us for different promo model type of work within some more artistic work as well. So we were traveling throughout the States, Canada. And one summer I was looking for something more with more work. I had more availability and got started within an XM agency and really grew within every position. So I started out in the field, driving 30-foot trucks through Canada, the East Coast, and then growing into more of an office position, and then eventually working my way up to now co-owner.
Awesome. And walk us through kind of what was the step of thinking you wanted to buy into an agency?
I think I've always seen myself as an entrepreneur within the work that I was doing. I've always worked for smaller companies, and it's something that I could see myself doing it, but I didn't really see how, when, what, where, how it would all fit in with my greater, bigger plans. And really choosing a path and a career was difficult for me. So that's why I always kept the gig work open to be able to do and dabble into different roles and responsibilities. But how this all happened and came about was really that the agency was scaled down drastically during COVID to 1 or 2 employees at a time. I left for a digital agency startup, a bunch of very bro-y dudes out in Alberta hired me out of the blue. It was an incredible opportunity to really see how an agency can start from really nothing and grow. When I left, I believe there were 17 or 19 employees, and to really be part of that and see the ops and really be able to grow your own position and take the lead on some aspects of the business was super important for me and really motivating. But then I was presented with an opportunity to become co-owner and acquire 50% of an agency I had worked in previously. So definitely very bittersweet. It was not a small decision for me to switch from a very comfortable but position that would allow me to grow and really create sort of the position I wanted versus starting a little from scratch with something that was established, but that was growing from 0 to 100 within a summer post pandemic. Definitely scarier, riskier. Did not know what I was expecting. I knew how the work worked, how to do an account director or a coordinator job very well, but to be the owner, I don't think I still have that answer, but that's sort of how it came about. So it sort of just happened to me, and I decided to go for it and haven't really looked back since.
What's been the biggest challenge with, growing and scaling the agency that you guys currently have?
Cash flow. I think we are not a traditional agency where most of your assets are, some subscriptions and computers, for example. We have the operational side of an XM agency is huge. We all operate differently, but on our end, we're very, very hands-on, and we've built the agency doing a lot of sampling tours and mobile tours, which means we have large rigs and trailers and sampling food trucks that we store for clients. We manage them. We do all the maintenance on them. We build. So we have warehouses that we work in 3 different cities in Canada, managing all of that. So it's very fixed cost focused. If I go this if I describe it in a very simplistic way, I think having that production element to our campaigns that are all in real life, in person, that needs physical assets to be produced or fabricated or rented and whatnot. That's something that's been very difficult, and not having as much access to resources as other more established agencies that have maybe potentially deeper pockets, which is not something that we had. We really acted as a startup and have been really, I think they call it bootstrapping.
Yep.
So that, I think, has been, it's still a very much a big challenge. It's something that we work at every day to make sure that we can potentially access some funding. A great thing in Canada is that there are some programs for us, but they don't always cater to what we need. So we haven't really found that balance to be able to access more freedom in being able to grow the company quickly. And that's brought us also to say no to some very large opportunities where we just couldn't accept it. We would grow too fast. There is such a thing, I've learned. So yeah, I think that's been a challenge operationally. And I think there's the client side and there's the team side. Growing a team has been really, really rewarding, but having to grow a team with in Canada, in the States as well. But I think we have obviously the Quebec side, the French speaking side, the English side. It brings cultural differences. We are from the same country, but it can feel like it's 2 completely different places. So I think that's something that we will constantly work at, because we have that competitive advantage to serve clients in French as well, which is a huge market for us in Canada. But it also brings its great deal of not difficulties, but challenges in making those teams work for us.
Which side is more difficult?
I'm from the French side, so I can't speak to that. I think it's really, really interesting to see both sides. I was raised by more of an Anglophone family and moved now to the English side of things, I think, or we call it ROC, rest of Canada. It's super interesting. There's not a good or a bad way. It's really, I think we're learning to listen and to really take the time to understand where people are coming from and the why behind how they're working, why they're doing it quicker or faster or slower I think I've learned to appreciate more and more. But it is very difficult to be able to speak for both sides.
Yeah. And I would think it's really difficult too. I haven't chatted with too many experimental agencies, especially when you have all those trucks and the equipment, and that throws a whole other wrench. But I presume too that you're doing strategy for all these clients around these experiences that you guys lay out. So how are you guys getting new clients? Is it just word of mouth and referrals? Are you doing anything unique?
That's a good question. We have been fortunate enough to not have invested, I want to say, any time, not much time in trying to acquire new leads. They've come to us. So we've been really fortunate for that. That has also shifted the way we do business. Prior to the pandemic, we had clients on retainer. We had much less clients, but larger accounts. Post-pandemic, we weren't able to go back to that. People, I think, are don't want to take as many risks. The budgets for experiential are significantly different, not higher, lower. They're just differently budgeted and spent. So we've been able to really increase our portfolio and our diversity of industries we work with, which has been really great. Really getting our name out there organically with, as you said, referrals, and really just by working hard and showing that we're an established company in Canada, working with Canadian brands, US brands, in Canada and the US. So I think it's really, we're very fortunate that it's happened organically. I think now we'll be sort of focusing on the next chapter of where we want to go and grow. It's been an investment of time and resources to service as many clients in different industries and learn to get, they choose us, we choose them, right? And I think we're at that stage now that's really interesting, where we can start and really focus on building teams that work on sampling, food, CPG, who works on luxury and beauty, for example. So really trying to understand which industries we want to service, and making sure that we're focused on that and that it's following where we want to go.
Do you think it's which is better for you all? Like if you had the choice, because you've done it on both sides, where you had bigger clients and less of them, or you have smaller clients but more. Which do you guys prefer, or what are the good and the bad of both?
There's good and bad on both sides. I think getting to a balance of having both is something that's important to decrease your vulnerability within, just with regular operations, and being able to plan better. Obviously, with a larger account on retainer, it'll be easier to plan your resources around that. What then happens is that team is doing solely XYZ. So trying to make sure that they get those one-off gigs as we go is super important, to really keep them motivated, and having like they're always on clients, and then having some pop-up projects come in is super important, just for the team and for team morale. Yeah,
I always see that, when we chat with agency owners, or I've seen it, worked with them in the past, if they have large clients, and let's say, one client is more than 20% of their revenue, I always let them know, be like, hey, that's great, but you got to anticipate this client that could go away at any time. And how would that affect, the agency? How would that affect your team? And then people are like, well, should I take on a client of that much revenue? I'm like, absolutely. But you just have to anticipate that going away. And then what I would always do too is I'd be like, well, crap, I got a client this big. That means there's other clients this big, and I can get more of them. So now that whale may turn into like a dolphin, right? It's not as that big of diverse, and then you just keep leveling up. And then I've seen it on the flip side. I had a mastermind member, David. I remember very vividly, and he was like this factory of just turning out clients. And I would always tell him, hey, I want you to tell everybody. And we would go around the room in the mastermind. I say, I want you to tell everybody what you do and who you do it for. And everyone, I want you to guess what his prices are. And they'd be like $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. He'd be like $100, $200. And everybody's like, what? And I'd always go to him. This was before I kind of figured this out, because he helped me. That's the great thing about a mastermind. Like, everyone's going to learn from it. I don't think you all should charge $100 or $200 a month, but unless you had this factory. But he would say, I wanted something where no one's ever going to question what we charge, and I just want them. And he was able to sell his agency for over 8 figures because he had so much revenue, and no one ever thought about it. And I was like, there's always different ways to do things, and proved all of us wrong. So it was pretty cool for him.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. We're not there, but it's interesting to see, right? How I think we're always sort of comparing ourselves, or trying to just be curious and understand who's doing what, when we're answering those RFPs, and making sure that we're not on target, right? No one wants to be the expensive agency or the cheap agency, but that's,
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to be the most expensive,
oh,
honestly.
really? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted the clients always to look and going, what am I missing with everybody else? Like, right? And here's the deal too. Like I hated RFPs. Like RFP stands for request for punishment, real effing problem. Like, and I'd always say, like, we would only do the RFP if we actually wrote it because it's just a losing battle in most cases. And here's what I would do, and this will work for all of you as well. When I would get an RFP, I'd always decline it and say, thanks so much for thinking of us. There's a lot of details left off on this. If you really want, I'd be happy to meet with you for an hour to 2 hours. It is a paid session. If you don't find it valuable, I'll give your money back. But then what I could do is I could build rapport with them. I could really see what they're doing. I could see who the agency wrote and designed this to make everybody fail. And I'd see how serious they are. And a lot of times when I would actually decline the RFP, they would want you even more. It's kind of like when we're all single and we'd be like, oh no, we don't want to go up to that person. Right. We're like, why are you not going up to that person?
That's interesting. We've had the chance to receive an invite to two large RFPs in the past 5 to 6 months. The first we did answer, we did feel confident, but there is that struggle in your mind where you're going, why am I doing this? Why do I have to prove myself? They want to work with me, they will work with me. We haven't been able to really put our foot down yet. I think we have a little bit of imposter syndrome when these emails come in. I'm looking over like, wait, me? Are you sure? Did you get the right ones? I think, and I never want that to ever go away. I think to have that feeling, but we did work with another agency, and the owner of that agency said he never ever answered RFPs. He doesn't do that at all. And I thought it was really interesting, really inspiring. And it's giving me less and less hunger to fill out those new RFPs that come in. But I think we're at a point where we can strategically plan on which ones we want to take and work on. But I think the RFP ways of doing things is slowly dying. And it's time consuming for everyone. It's costly as well. When we know that they're asking 9+ agencies for the same proposal, it's a little you just question yourself on whether it's worth it or not.
It's not worth it. I mean, literally, that's why we would say no. Like, I remember Lotus Cars coming to us. And I remember kind of the same thing on some of the bigger brands would come to us. And at first I would feel the same thing, like the imposter syndrome. And then I'd be like, and then I would actually start working with them. I'm like, man, these people are dumb as hell. Not saying Lotus Cars, but like some of these bigger brands that people would all know. I'm like, these people don't know nothing. Like a third grader could do better marketing and know how to manage better. And as soon as I started seeing that, I was like, oh man, obviously they're coming to us for a reason. And then I needed to think about, how do I position myself as an advisor, and what are the questions I need to ask, right? Rather than them asking questions. If they're the ones asking questions, then they're going to look at you as just an order taker. And did they hear me right? But if you start asking the right questions, it's going to change the conversation and position you in a way where they're going to be like, no one else is asking these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should ask them to be like, well, you should probably ask them why not. They may be the wrong agency for you. And there's probably a reason why they're the cheapest, because you're going to spend way more time. You're going to tell them exactly what they need to do rather than what you want for the result of, of what they actually need. So that's what we did. It took us a long time to figure that out. And then I'd tell the prospects too. I'm like, look, I'm interviewing you as just as much as you're interviewing us. If I don't like you, I'm going to tell you, and you can go to somewhere else. And then they'd be like, who is this punk kid that's 30 or whatever, at the time. I'm not 30 anymore. Obviously, you can tell by the gray hair. I'm a lot older than that, but they'd be like, who is this? Because I was always the youngest in the company and I was always the youngest in the room. So they would always kind of, be like, but I was like, I'd flip it on the head and they'd be like, all right. And we'd win the deals. We'd win 85% of the deals that we'd go after.
I might start doing that. Um, for sure. Next ones that come in, we'll work on that. I think
Yeah.
also, the industry has just changed completely. People who, had their go-to agencies no longer want to work with them, or they want to change things up and, start dating around other agencies. And to get to a point where you're doing one-offs, it's very time consuming. So that's where the RFP can be tempting, but what's the payoff, I think, is something that we're just not comfortable all the time with the opportunities.
Yeah, just try flipping on its head and just saying, hey, we're going to respectfully decline the RFP, and here's why. And say, but I highly recommend us, why don't we get together for an hour to 2 hours and do blah, blah, and then you'll get this result. And they'll be like, I never thought about it that way. And the agencies that actually start doing that and have the confidence to do that, it changes everything for them. Because I bet if you guys are listening and you guys are doing RFPs, add up all the time that you put into it and then figure out what it cost you just to do that RFP. But then also add up this number on top of it, the opportunity cost. So if you're actually billing that on a real client that's actually paying you, that you can actually grow, add those two numbers together and the number is going to be pretty big. And I can promise you'd be like, there's no way in hell I'm doing any RFPs anymore unless I actually wrote them. So regardless what country you're coming from on that. So
they're all the same.
They're all the same. They all want the cheapest, or they want to pay the cheapest, but they want the best results.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to convince them. You just need to find the right clients that actually want to pay for the right results.
Absolutely. And I think just being pickier is rewarding in the long run, right? So it's something that we're at a stage. We, acquired the company 2 years ago. We're now starting to get to work on the company, not as much in the company, which is a very foreign concept because we're in the weeds every day, working on accounts, taking on accounts ourselves as the business owners, and constantly having that voice in our head saying, don't do this, stop doing this. But we're just in a vulnerable place, but at least we now have the almost luxury to tell ourselves, no, we have to really work on the business and that comes with our saying no to RFPs, saying yes to spending more time working on what counts and the bigger picture. So it's something that's been a foreign concept for us to take some time away from the schedules and from the accounts to do that, but we really see the benefits. And it can seem so simple, and so obvious to do that, but I don't think it is for everyone. It definitely wasn't for us. The idea to take 2 hours every 2 weeks to just talk business together when we talk every day about everything was completely absurd to me, to take that time away from working on what I thought was on or in the business. So it's been really interesting to be able to grow to that stage, which again might seem so simple, and but it wasn't at the time when we started working on regrowing the business.
So what was getting in your head when you would say, I know I should be working on the business, but you're working in the business?
To get to that point even was because I wasn't even aware that I could. I thought, maybe in 5 years I'll get to look at our values and because I bought in, right? So we didn't redo anything. The branding's there, like the name, all these things. So I really thought that would be a far ahead luxury that we would have. So we really were having some issues with when you work with a business partner. I think it's a marriage. There are compromises, there are fights, there are wins that we want to celebrate together, but we're definitely not aligning on some things that at the core were so simple to fix. And we met with advisors, which was, again, something that we haven't done. And they really were able to see right away that the issues weren't huge. We ended up doing our homework on our ends and matching them, merging them together, and everything was almost identical. So I think it was really just listening to each other. And then the advisors moving forward gave us more homework. And one of them was to take the time to, out of our week, every whatever we were comfortable with, to work on the business and have an admin list and what we wanted to change and adapt, and having an agenda for ourselves. And it felt very strange because we spoke every day and we have really good communication, but being told that from, an HR advisor or whoever, was really interesting. And we've stuck to it for the past year. We haven't, we appreciate that time. We look forward to it. We make our lists and we put updates in it, and we don't get through everything every time, but to know that we have that time that's really working for the company and for the team, that's something that we'll always align on. And it's been really valuable to have that time for ourselves.
Yeah, I love that you created a rule around, I will have this amount of time each day or each week in order to do this. And then once you start doing that, you get a little bit momentum. It's never, for a lot of you listening, it's never like a complete like left turn. It's a gradual thing in order to build you up to it, to build your clients up to it, to build your team up to it. Especially as an owner, if you're doing sales or you're in account management and they're used to talking to you, you need to start kind of gradually going, dude, this person's way better than me on project management. You don't want me on it. Like, I forget shit. Like, I'm not going to remember this. This person, that's their whole job. I'm doing 1,000 different things. And you set your team up and you realize that, then that's really when you can start having scale and really taking off. So, well, Sam, this has been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, you did great on your first podcast. I just want to tell you, she was so nervous. I was like, oh, it'll be fun. It's just a conversation. So what's the agency website people can go and check?
It's primemarketingagency.com.
Very easy. Everyone go check it out. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share it out with a friend. Hit the like button to help us out and get more cool guests. And if you guys have a cool guest that you would like to hear from, or if you guys want to come on the show and you have a really interesting story owning an agency and growing it, scaling it, selling it, whatever it is, please reach out. Don't have your PR publicists reach out. We always ignore them. But have you personally reach out, you probably come on the show. So until next time, have a swank day. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out. Click on the link. I'll see you soon.